What's up, y'all? Dennis here, Do It All Garage. Um, I made a short video the other day about buying and selling motorcycles and gave some tips and stuff like that. Um, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth and give you some actual examples that I've dealt with and just dealing with people buying and selling bikes. So I wrote down a couple notes here. Um, I'll just kind of jump right into it. Um, and most of these are going to be bad examples. I don't really enjoy doing negative videos, but I just want you to know what can happen if you don't put a lot of forethought into what you're doing and who you're meeting with and how the deal's going to go down and that sort of thing. Okay. I guess I'll start with selling. All right. So when I bought, these are just a few examples. I've bought and sold hundreds of motorcycles and four wheelers and stuff like that. But anyway, as far as selling goes, one example, I was selling it was a Kawasaki KLX. I think it was a 300. It might have been a 250. I'm pretty sure it was a 300. I listed it on Craigslist. I had an older gentleman contact me and say that he wanted to buy it for his grandson. So I said, okay, that's cool. You know, when do you want to meet up? And he goes, well, I want to send my grandson to your part of town to check out the bike and ride it and see if he wants it. And if he does and everything checks out, then I'll meet you at a later day and I'll buy it. And I said, well, sir, that's great and all, but first off, how old is your grandson? He was 16 or 17 years old. Okay, barely old enough to have a driver's license, much less conduct business with on from a legal standpoint. You know, he's by law he's considered a minor, at least in Texas. So I told this guy, absolutely not. I will not do that. First off, I don't need to meet with you 2 times to sell you a bike. If I'm going through the trouble to load my bike up and take time out of my schedule to load my bike up and meet you at a certain day and time at a certain place, you at least need to have the courtesy to bring a vehicle capable of taking the machine home and bringing money. So if you do like it, you can buy it. So basically I told him, number one, I'm not going to let your grandson, a minor, ride my bike. Number two, if you want to show up and ride it, that's fine. But again, if you saw my other video, my policy is you will not throw a leg over my bike until I'm holding the full amount that I'm asking for the motorcycle of your cash in my hand. End of story, no exceptions. I do this for several reasons, okay, for obvious reasons. So his reply on the phone was, so you want me to trust a 17-year-old kid with, I think I was asking like $1,800 or $1,500 for the bike, one of the two, let's say 15 for example. And he said, you want me to trust a 17-year-old with $1,500 cash and go and meet a stranger somewhere? And my reply was, okay, he's your grandson, you know him, and you won't trust him with $1,500 of your money, but you want me, not even, I've never met this kid before in my life, number one. Number two, he's a minor. You want me to go meet up with him, take my time and effort and go meet up with him, unload my bike, and let a 17-year-old kid ride my bike without even holding the money? Absolutely not. I said, I'll pass on this deal. Thanks a lot. And he said some little smart aleck comment, you know, when he was hanging up, and I told him I heard it, you know, before he took the phone away from his ear, I guess. But you're going to deal with some jerks out there because there's a lot of them out there. Not all people are jerks, but they are out there, and you will deal with them. Another example, this one happened probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half, something like that. I had purchased a Honda TRX 250EX. It was in pretty rough cosmetic condition when I got it. I went through it, got it running, put a new seat on it, some new tires, got it running really good, and I put it up for $1,500. That's what I wanted for it, and I wasn't going to take any less. I put that in the ad. First thing it said in my ad was $1,500 firm. So a guy calls me. We agree on a price, which was $1,500. I told him over the phone I'm not taking less, cash only. We agree a time to meet in a place. I load my bike up. We meet up, and I told him, and it also said in my ad, I'm holding your cash while you're test driving my bike, no exceptions. He shows up. I start the bike up for him. I rode it around the parking lot, did a little lap for him, just show him it ran. And then he goes and jumps on my bike like he's about to ride it. And I reached over and I turned it off. I said, you're not riding my bike unless I'm holding your money. That's how it's got to be, man. I'm sorry. So he said, all right. And he reached in his pocket, grabbed a wad of cash. It was like 5s, 10s, 20s, no hundreds in there at all. And he's giving me supposedly $1,500. Reached in his pocket, hands me a big wad of cash, starts my bike up, and took off before I could even count it. So, okay, whatever. So he starts riding it, and I start counting the money, and I counted $1,380. And I said, there's no way this guy knew what was up right when he was on the phone with me before we even drove here. I said, I must have miscounted. I counted it again while he's still riding my bike like a freaking moron around the parking lot. And it was $1,380. He was $120 short. I flagged him over. I said, hey man, you're $120 short. So he accused me of taking $120 of his money while he was riding my bike in this parking lot. And I handed him his money back as soon as he said that. And I said, we're done here. I'm going to load my bike up. Please get away from me. And that was pretty much the end of that. And basically, didn't really occur to me at first. I just kind of naturally trust people until I had a reason not to. I thought about it, and later on that evening, I'm about 90% sure what his plan was to hand me that money without me counting it, stick it in my pocket, and then he was going to, after riding the bike, he was going to tell me he wanted it. And I said, okay, cool, and just trust that he counted the money and it was all there. And then he was going to load the bike up and leave, and then I get home and count the money, and then it's short. Well, then I'm screwed, right? So luckily I caught it. Always count the money in front of the buyer, the seller, whoever. Both parties need to be present. Count the freaking money, okay? No exceptions. I moved down here another time. Once again, in my ad, I'm very upfront about it, okay? Try to be as fair as possible. I was selling a Kawasaki Bayou 250, and this kid wanted to buy it. I was selling it pretty cheap. It was kind of beat up, but it ran good. It was a good entry-level, cheap four-wheeler, and this kid wanted it. I said, that's fine. I was selling it for like $800, I think. And so we go meet up in a parking lot once again, and I unload my bike, and he gets out, and he's got like 3 of his, buddies, high school buddies with him or whatever. Pretty cocky guys, but so we got to the point where he was ready to ride it, and he puts like $400 up in front of me and says, here's half the money. I'll let you hold half of it while I ride it. And I said, well, that's great, but I'm not letting you ride half my bike. I'm letting you ride the whole thing. And if you wreck this bike in this parking lot, I need all your money in my pocket already. Okay, that's how this works. If you can't do it, I understand, but we have nothing else to talk about here. So he ended up handing me the rest of the money, and I let him drive it, and he ended up buying it, and everything was cool. But you're only going to ride half my bike if you hand me half the money. That's how it goes. Another tip that I left out on my last video: when you deal with these people, okay, just complete morons, people that you're asking $2,000 for a bike and they call you and ask you like 20 minutes worth of idiotic questions that are just I don't even know where they come up with some of it, but basically waste about 10-20 minutes of your time on the phone, haven't even looked at the bike yet, and then they offer you $500 for a bike that's worth $2,500 and you're asking $2,000 for it, okay? Or people that were just rude or obnoxious or whatever. Take their phone number and log it in your phone, okay? Make up a name, jerk, don't answer, whatever. Make up a name. That way, when you continuously do this, if you're selling, let's say you're selling your old dishwasher or refrigerator later on down the road and they call you, you know not to answer it because it's going to be that same guy, okay? This isn't a guaranteed method here, but it will be if they keep the same phone number, and a lot of people keep the same phone number for a long time, so this has actually helped me out. I've had people call me multiple times actually. You know, there's a lot of Craigslisters out there, and it saved me from dealing with idiots more than once, okay? So log their number in. Buying bikes, okay? Here's an example. A guy on Craigslist, he was selling, actually I had an ad put out saying that I bought used motorcycles, four-wheelers, stuff like that. And so he called me and he said, I've got a Honda TRX 450, okay, which is a super nice bike, and his was super clean. Let me get my focus in here. So he had a super clean four-wheeler. He also had like I think it was a CRF 100, little kind of a youth dirt bike. And both of them were absolutely immaculate condition, looked like they had barely been ridden. And he said he wanted like $2,000 for both of them. The 450 at that time alone would have been worth minimum $3,500 by itself. But me doing what I do, and you know, I've gotten deals like that were completely legit, and people just selling them cheap, getting rid of them. They need cash for whatever reason. I had to at least go check it out. So again, I trust everyone until they give me a reason not to, typically. I drive to his house. I live about probably 45 minutes north of the Houston city limits, and he lives right inside the Houston city limits. So the day that I was supposed to go meet with him, I got literally less than a mile away from this guy's house, and it was pouring rain, and all the streets were flooded around his house. Houston is very prone to flooding. It's got a lot of flat areas. There's just not a lot of place for the water to go. Anyway, so I wasted all that time driving down there, so I had to call him and say, hey man, we'll do it tomorrow or whatever. So luckily it stopped raining. I went back down there the next day because I really wanted this deal if it was legit, but I wanted to check it out for myself. So I finally get to the guy's house, and it's a Hispanic guy. You know, he seemed kind of quiet, but, you know, not rude or overly nice even, just, you know, normal guy. And we go in his garage, he shows me the bikes, and I was like, do you have any kind of paperwork on them, bills of sales, titles, anything like that? No. I'm like, okay, well, you know, as long as I get a bill of sale from you for both of them with the VIN numbers and your information, then that's fine. You know, we'll do that. So I said, let me write down the VIN numbers, and I'm going to call the sheriff's department and have them run the VINs. And that's what I did, and he's totally cool with it. So all right. So I called him, gave him the VIN numbers. It was a nice lady on the phone, super nice, totally willing to do that for me. And I was just asking her if they were stolen or if anything like that, anything weird going on with them. And she told me that, well, they're not reported stolen or anything, but there is a lien on both of them. So I was like, okay, and I thanked her for her time and everything, and I got off the phone with her. So then I go walk over to this guy and I ask him, I said, hey man, did you finance these bikes? You buy them new? Yeah, I bought them new. Okay, are you still paying on them? Yeah. So you haven't paid them off or anything? No. So you were going to take $2,000 and whatever of my money and give me two bikes that don't legally belong to you? Yeah. Okay, man. We're done here. Complete waste of time. Luckily, I did run the VIN number on that one. That would have been really bad. I would have lost a lot of money on that one. $2,000 might not be a lot of money to some of you, but it is to me, and it has been for a long time. So dodged a bullet there. Anyway, another deal. I was going to purchase, same kind of deal. They called me, said they had a bike for sale. It was a Suzuki Ozark 250 ATV. These people lived about 90 something miles away from me. All right. But I'll drive 2 or 3 times that distance for the right deal. Okay. It was a Hispanic family. None of them spoke English except for one. And it was one of the younger girls in the family. She was probably 10, maybe 11 years old, something like that. And she spoke pretty decent English, and she also knew Spanish, but she was kind of having a hard time translating to me, relaying what her uncles or brothers or whoever they were saying. And I asked her on the phone before I drove down there, I said, does this bike run? Yes, everything's fine on it. Does it need any work at all? No, it doesn't need anything. Nothing at all is wrong with it. Okay, and we went on for 10, 15 minutes on the phone because I wanted to be sure before I drove that far. So I drive 90 something miles one way to go to these people's house, and they live in a big fenced in compound with like 5 pit bulls running around. There's probably 30 people that live in 4 or 5 different trailers that they have on the property, which, whatever, that's a whole nother video. But, they seem nice enough and let me come in and check their bike out. And I walk in there and look at this thing. The seat is torn. The plastics are completely just scratched and beat to heck. One of the brake calipers is hanging off. The air box is missing, okay, much less the air filter. The whole air box is gone. The carburetor is pouring gas everywhere. The bike will not start. There's no battery in it. The tires are bald. And they wanted like $800 or $900 for this bike, and that's a good deal if it's a cool bike. I mean, nothing's wrong with it. Everything's good to go. But if it needs that much work, that's a $250, $300 bike in my book. And so I told him, I said, man, this is not at all what you explained to me on the phone. And I drove a long way. I'll give you $200 for that bike. This thing needs a ton of work. And they turned it down. And then I was so mad at that point, and I got about 10 or 15 miles away, and they called me back and said, oh, well, we'll take like $450 for it or something like that. And, if I was still there, I probably would have bought it, but I was so ticked off by the time I left that I didn't even want to talk to them anymore and just didn't want to deal with them. So that kind of stuff can happen too. You get in that situation, ask for pictures, detailed pictures if you're driving that far. Okay. So moving on. The old DRZ. Same kind of deal. Guy calls me, hey, I got a dirt bike for sale. What is it? It's a Suzuki DRZ 400. I can't remember the exact year. I want to say it was between 2000 and 2004. It was the dirt version. It wasn't the street version. Guy said he didn't have a title. Usually not a big deal as long as, everything's good to go on it. It's not stolen or whatever. So I go to the guy's house. He didn't live super far away, probably 30 miles, something like that. Wasn't too bad. I go to this guy's house, he's a working guy, blue collar guy, just like me. You know, his wife and very young children are there running around. Nice little house, nice neighborhood. You know, they were all polite. No red flags went up at all. And I checked the bike out. I got a copy of his driver's license, and I wrote up a good bill of sale and everything. We both got a copy of it. I load the bike up. I paid him like I think it was $1,100 I paid for that bike. Okay. And it needed some carburetor work, you know, cleaning and maybe a battery and stuff, just minor stuff, easy to do, cheap stuff. So I brought the bike home. I did all that work on it, and I had a buyer for it lined up like maybe 2-3 weeks later for like $1,800. I was going to make a pretty decent profit on it. And, you know, the guy asked me that I was going to sell it to the same question. He goes, do you have the title? I said, no, I don't. I'll give you a bill of sale, you know. And he said, well, man, if you wouldn't mind, can I have the VIN number so I can run it? I said, absolutely. Here's the VIN number. I was so confident in this whole deal and everything. And so I gave him the VIN number. He calls me back about 5 minutes later and says, hey, man, I called my buddy that works for so-and-so police department. He ran that VIN. He said that bike's been reported stolen. And it literally felt like my stomach fell out of my body. I mean, I was like, it was a bad feeling, really bad feeling. I said, dude, there's no way this bike's stolen, man. That, you know, this guy was super legit that I bought it from and all this and that. And I said, thanks for letting me know. Let me do my own research real quick, and I'll see, you know, if that's the case. I'm sorry for wasting your time. So I called my local police department and give them the VIN, and you know something's up when you don't get an answer right away, and they start asking you questions like, where's the bike located? Where do you live? What's your name? What's your phone number? What's your address? All that kind of stuff. And I'm like, ma'am, it was a lady on the phone I vividly remember, and this was probably 10 or 12 years ago, maybe. No, probably about 8 years ago, I think. And she said, yes, the bike's stolen. I said, oh my God, man, here we go, you know. So I told him my address and everything. I said, if this thing's stolen, I'll bring it to you or whatever we got to do. I don't want anything to do with it. Even if I got my money tied up in it, I want nothing to do with a stolen bike or anything stolen. I don't ride like that. So immediately she said they were going to send an officer in a tow truck over to my house to make a report and pick the bike up and impound it. And I said, that's fine. I'll be here, you know. And so as soon as I got off the phone with her, I called the guy that I bought it from. He answers the phone. I told him, hey man, that bike you sold me stolen. I'm going to need my money back. Okay. So we'll be in touch. All right. Basically. So guess what? I call him again. He doesn't answer. Okay. Big freaking surprise, right? Should have seen it coming from a mile away. I trust people to a fault usually. Okay. So he's got my money, sold me a stolen bike. Now he's not answering the phone. I turned the bike in. I'm out all my money. I bought the bike for about $1,100. I probably put another $200-$300 plus a lot of sweat equity into it. It's gone. Okay. So, okay, I'm not a stupid teenager, so I'm not going to go kick this guy's door in and beat him down in front of his family and start taking stuff out of his house until I feel like I've gotten my money back. I'm going to do it the legal way, and I'm going to take him to court. So I paid like, I don't know, $150 to $300, somewhere in the neighborhood of that, to basically sue him, take him to small claims court. So I did. He shows up to court, and we're standing in front of the judge, and the judge says, okay, sir, plead your case. She's talking to me, and I did. I had all my paperwork and all this stuff and told her the story and everything, exactly what happened. And she said, okay, looked at him, said, sir, plead your case. The first thing out of this guy's mouth was, oh, well, he should have run the VIN number before he bought it. That was literally what he said, word for word. As soon as he said that, this judge basically tore him a new one. Okay, she looked at him and said, "Sir, are you contesting that he is out his money?" "No, I didn't think so." Okay. And the guy just had nothing intelligent to say whatsoever. I mean, it was almost comical. I would have been laughing had that not been me standing there, and I would have been still waiting to go up and see the judge. But yeah, it was a freaking nightmare. And so I'd never been to small claims court before. I didn't know how any of that worked. Okay. I thought that the court went after him for the money, and then they gave it to you since you paid them to take this person to court. I just assumed that it would work out some way like that. It turns out that's not how it works. I had a judgment against him, but there was nothing I could do to make him pay. So I did a little bit of research, and I filed what is called a writ of execution. Okay, and it's basically where you go back to the courthouse and you can file a writ of execution on someone you have a judgment against, which in this case was person X. I'm not going to say his name, even though I'd really like to slander him all over the internet. So I pay him like another $150 or $175, something like that, to file a writ of execution. And basically what this means is the constables in that area go to his house and knock on the door and politely ask him for money to reimburse me for the money that he owes me. And so they got him to answer the door the first time, and told him what was going on, and he said he didn't have any money at the time, but come back at a later date or whatever, and he will. So they went back 2-3 more times, knocked on the door. They knew he was inside. They heard him in there, but they wouldn't answer the door. So the constables called me and basically told me just that. "Well, sir, there's nothing we can do. He doesn't answer the door anymore." And I was totally naive to the fact that that would be the end of it. I'm like, "Okay, well, do y'all pay me my money back since I paid you to get my money for me and you're not?" And that's not how it works. So basically, don't waste your time going to small claims court. It won't do you any good in most cases. If someone is honest and reasonable and has a good head on their shoulders and believes in karma and that sort of thing, you're not going to have to take them to court anyway. You can settle outside of court usually, and they'll be reasonable about it, and you can come to some kind of agreement. Someone that you would usually have to take to court is typically not the type of person that is going to pay you anyway, unless they're facing jail time if they don't pay you, which in small claims court, they don't face jail time. There's absolutely nothing you can do to force them to pay you back your money. So, little overview here. Run the VIN number every time. Even if you have a title, doesn't mean there's no liens on it, okay? Better safe than sorry. Run the VIN number, okay? Put their phone numbers in your phone. That way at least there's a chance that you don't have to deal with them anymore if you had a bad experience with them. Just cover yourself. That's all. So I think I've been on this rant long enough. And again, I'm kind of venting too, but I also want to share my experiences so that maybe some of you, it'll help you out in the future in situations like that. Don't ever be afraid to ask someone to run the VIN number. If they have a problem with it, that's a red flag. You need to walk away. But I hope this saved y'all some time and money, because I wish I would have, gone with my gut feeling, I guess, or actually gone against my gut feeling and just ran the VIN number anyway, even though I felt comfortable on that one deal. But as far as people wanting you to hold half the money to ride the whole bike, no. Let me send my underage grandson to test ride the bike for me or whatever without any money in your hand, no. Shortchanging me, count the freaking money. Absolutely count it before they ride the bike. Don't even put the freaking key in it. They want to look at the bike, you want to look at their money. They want to ride the bike, You need to hold their money. Okay? Don't drive that far without detailed pictures, that sort of thing. So, hope this helps some of y'all out. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks a lot. Bye.